Chapter 11. The Politics of Meaning. 1. One of the things that everyone knows but no one can quite think how to demonstrate is that a country's politics reflected the design of its culture. At one level, the proposition is indubitable. Where else could French politics exist but France? Yet, merely to state it is to raise doubts. Since 1945, Indonesia has seen revolution, parliamentary democracy, civil war, presidential autocracy, mass murder, and military rule. Where is the design in that? Between the stream of events that make up political life and the web of beliefs that compromises a culture, is it difficult to find a middle term? On the one hand, everything looks like a clutter of schemes and surprises. On the other, like a vast geometry of settled judgments. What joins such a chaos of incident to such a cosmos of sentiment is extremely obscure, and how to formulate it is even more so. Above all, what the attempt to link politics and culture needs is a less breathless view of the former and less aesthetic view of the later. In the several essays which make up culture and politics in Indonesia, the sort of theoretical reconstructions necessary to produce such a change of perspective is undertaken mainly from the cultural side by Benedict Anderson and Tawfiq Abdullah, mainly from the political by the Daniel Leff and G. William Little, more or less evenly from both by Santoro Cartodirgio. Whether the subject by law or party organization, the Javanese idea of power, or the Minangkabau idea of change, ethnic conflict, or rural radicalism, the effort is the same: to render Indonesia political life intelligible by seeing it, even at its most erratic and informed by a seed of conceptions, ideals, hypotheses, obsessions, judgments derived from concerns which far transcend it, and to give reality to those conceptions by seeing them as having their existence not in some gauzy world of mental forms, but in the concrete immediacy of partisan struggle. Culture here is not cults and customs, but the structures of meaning through which men give shape to their experience. And politics is not coups and constitutions, but one of the principal arenas in which such structures publicly unfold. The two being thus reframed, determining the connection between them becomes a practicable enterprise, though hardly a modest one. The reason the enterprise is immodest, or anyway especially venturesome, is that there is almost no theoretical apparatus with which to conduct it. The whole field, what shall we call it, thematic analysis, is wedded to an ethic of imprecision. Most attempts to find general cultural conceptions displayed in particular social contexts are content to be merely evocative, to place a series of concrete observations in immediate juxtapositions, and to pull out or read in the pervading elements by rhetorical suggestions. Explicit argument is rare because there are, as much by design as neglect, hardly any term in which to cast it, and one is left by a collection of anecdotes connected by insinuations, and with a feeling that though much has been touched, little has been grasped. The scholar who wishes to avoid this sort of perfected impressionism that has thus to build his theoretical scaffold at the same time that he conducts his analysis. That is why the authors in the whole book have such diverse approaches, while Little moves out from group conflicts and Anderson from art and literature, while left puzzled in the politizations of legal institutions. Santoro's the durability of popular millenarism, Abdullah's the fusion of social conservatism and ideological dynamism. The unity here is neither of topic nor argument, but of analytical style to aim and of methodological issues. The pursuit of such an aim entails. These issues are multiple, involving questions of definition, verification, causality, representativeness, objectivity, measurement, communication, but at base they all boil down to one question: how to frame an analysis of meaning. The conceptual structures individuals are to construe experience, which will be at once circumstantial enough to carry conviction and abstract enough to forward theory. These are equal necessities. Choosing one at the expense of the other yields blank descriptivism or vacant generality, but they also superficially, at least, pull in opposite directions, for the more one invokes details, the more he is bound to the peculiarities of the immediate case. The more one omits them, the more he loses touch with the ground on which his arguments rest. Discovering how to escape this paradox, or more exactly, for one never really escapes it, how to keep it at bay, is what methodologically thematic analysis is all about. And it is consequently what, beyond the particular findings concerning particular subjects, the whole book is about. Each study struggles to draw broad generalizations out of special instances, to penetrate deeply enough into detail to discover something more than detail. The strategies adopted to accomplish this are again various, but the effort to make parochial bodies of material speak for more than themselves is uniform. The scene in Indonesia, but the goal, still far enough away from sustained ambition, is an understanding of how it is that every people gets the politics it imagines. The politics it imagines. 2. Indonesia is an excellent place to take up such a quest, as here to Polynesian, Indic, Islamic, Chinese, and European traditions. It probably has more hieratic symbols per square foot than any other large land expanse in the world. And moreover, it had in Sukarno who it is a mistake to think what was untypical in anything but his genius, a man both wildly anxious and supremely equipped to assemble those symbols into a pan-doctrinal strat religion for the new formed republic. Socialism, communism, incarnations of Vishnumurti. A newspaper called to arms cried in 1921, abolish capitalism, propped up by the imperialism that it is a slave. God grant Islam the strength that it may succeed. I am a follower of Karl Marx. I am also a religious man. Sukarno announced some decades later, I have made myself the meeting place of all trends and ideologies. I have blended them until finally they became the present Sukarno. Yet, on the other hand, the very density and variety of symbolic reference has made of Indonesian culture a swirl of troops and images into which more than incautious observer has merely disappeared, with so much meaning lying scattered openly around it is nearly impossible to frame an argument relating political events to one or another strain of it, which is totally lacking in plausibility. In one sense, seeing cultural reflections in political activities is extremely easy in Indonesia, but this only makes the isolation of precise connections that much more difficult, because it is in this garden of metaphors almost any hypothesis discerning a form of thought in a piece of action has a certain logic. Developing hypotheses that have truth as well is more a matter of resisting temptations than of seizing opportunities. The main temptation to be resisted is jumping to conclusions, and the main defense against it is explicitly to trace out the sociological links between cultural themes and political developments, rather than to more deductively from one to the other. Ideas, religious, moral, practical, aesthetic, must, as Max Weber among others never tired of insisting, be carried by powerful social groups to have powerful social effects. Someone must revere them, celebrate them, defend them, impose them. They have to be institutionalized in order to find not just an intellectual existence in society, but, so to speak, a material one as well. The ideological wars which have racked Indonesia for the past 25 years must be seen not, as they so often have, a clashes of opposed mentalities: Javanese mysticism versus Sumatran pragmatism, Hindic syncretism versus Islamic dogmatism. But as the substance of a struggle to create an institutional structure for the country that enough of its citizens will find sufficiently congenial to allow it to function. Hundreds of thousands of political dead testify to the fact that nowhere nearly enough citizens did so, and it is questionable how far they do so now, organizing a cultural hodgepodge into A workable polity is more than a matter of inventing a promiscuous civil religion to blunt its variety. It requires either the establishment of political institutions within which opposing groups can safely contend, or the elimination of all groups but one from the political stage. Neither of these has so far been more than marginally affected in Indonesia. The country has been as incapable of totalitarianism as of constitutionalism. Rather, almost every institution in the society, army, bureaucracy, court, university, press, party, religion, village, has been swept by great tremors of ideological passion, which seems to have neither end nor direction. If Indonesia gives any overall impression, it is of a state manqué, a country which, unable to find a political form appropriate to the temper of its people, stumbles on apprehensively from one institutional contrivance to the next. A great part of the problem, of course, is that the country is archipelagic in more than geography, insofar as it displays a pervasive temper. It is one riven with internal contrasts and contradictions. There are the regional differences, the rhetorical combativeness of the Minangkabau, and the reflective elusiveness of the Javanese, for example. There are the faith and custom ethnic divergences among even closely related groups. As in the East Sumatran boiling pot, there are the class conflicts reflected in the nativistic movement's material, and the vocational ones reflected in that of the struggle for a workable legal system. There are racial minorities, Chinese and Papuans, religious minorities, Christians and Hindus, local minorities, Jakarta Batak, Surabaya, Madurese, the nationalistic slogan, one people, one country, one language, is a hope, not a description. The hope that the slogan represents, however, is not necessarily unreasonable. Most of the larger nations of Europe grew out of a cultural heterogeneity hardly less marked. If Tuscans and Sicilians can live together in the same state and conceive of themselves as natural compatriots, so can Javanese and Minangkabau. Rather than the mere fact of internal diversity, it has been the refusal at all levels of society to come to terms with it that has impeded Indonesia's search for effective political form. The diversity has been denied as a colonial slander, deplored as a feudal remand, clouded over with ersatz syncretisms, the tenuous history, tendentious history, and utopian fantasies, while all the time the bitter combat of groups who see in one another rivals, not merely for political and economic power, but for the right to define truth, justice, beauty, and morality. The very nature of reality rages on, virtually unguided by formal political institutions, by acting as though it were culturally homogeneous like Japan or Egypt, instead of heterogeneous like India or Nigeria, Indonesia, or more exactly I suppose the Indonesian elite, has managed to create anarchic politics of meaning outside the established structures of civil government.